Good morning, everybody. We have an exciting episode of History at the Pawn Shop this morning. This is going to be our first little more in-detailed one. Our buddy Jay is back from being crippled up from doing things that are beyond his age limitations, and we really appreciate him being here. But we're going to talk about a few of the more interesting artifacts that are in here, and the first one I want to talk about is really a very special artifact to me, and that's this picture right here in the corner they're going to zoom in on. And there's a whole story behind that, and we didn't have very much in here at the pawn shop at the time, and this little old lady comes in here and she goes, "Do you guys collect history?" And I said, "Yes, we do. We preserve it and save it." And she goes, "I'll be right back." And she comes back and she brings in this photo. And the photo is obviously a sailor, a woman. It could be his sister, his wife, whatever, if you don't know the story, and a little girl. Well, invariably, it turns out that the elderly lady I was speaking to is the little girl. And this is her mom with her favorite uncle, Uncle Vern. And her Uncle Vern was lost on the USS Wahoo with all hands. And she wanted somebody to take care of Uncle Vern because her kids were coming and they were going to put her in a nursing home. And she knew they were going to throw away all of this history. And so Uncle Vern lives with us here at the pawn shop now. I've got two photos of him, this one and one that's colorized, which I take different places. And the Uncle Vern story is important because it's part of what we do here in the community. And what we do is we try to save history. We want to preserve history. And it's a place where people can bring history, and then they get to come in here and see stuff on the walls at the shop. What's cool about having history in a pawn shop is that you get to see things, you get to expose people to history that normally wouldn't necessarily go to a museum, if that makes sense. So let's go along today and show you some of the neater parts of our collection. So yet another interesting piece right up here is actually a calendar. That was actually a sample calendar from 1943. And these companies would make up these sample calendars and send them to different businesses and things like that. And of course, here we have one of the classic iconic photos of a medic tending to a wounded American soldier. And the calendar came to us in almost excellent shape. We framed it up. You're going to look around, and as you see all these different frames and things, you're going to realize that none of them match. The reason none of them match is because I have to be careful with money. So a lot of frames that we have come from places like Goodwill, ARC, Annie's Art Attic, things like that, yard sales. Customers go, "Hey, I cleaned out my yard and found 4 frames," and we reuse them and we do them. Another really neat artifact that we have is right here. This is one of our war bond posters, and this particular war bond poster was specific to schools. And what they wanted to do is they wanted students to see what things cost. So when you bought war bonds in World War II, most people couldn't afford a whole bond. That was $18.75. So what they would do is they would save up and they would buy stamps. You could buy 10-cent stamps, 25-cent stamps, or dollar stamps. And when you had enough stamps, you would turn them in and you would get a war bond. And so this is all telling students different things. You know, so many, one war bond will pay for a bayonet or things along that nature. And on the back of it, when you take it all apart, it's really neat. It's got a bunch of different school exercises and things like that. And things of that nature. So coming along a little bit further, submarine, that's actually a kid's coloring book from World War II, which is super cool. And then we look here at the very top, we have a crossing the line certificate. Now these are very, very common. You see them a lot of times with guys who are in the Navy. That's who would get them. Soldiers would oftentimes get them if they happen to be on a troop transport going across. What makes this particular one so interesting is this metal tube underneath it. And this metal tube is actually got an address on it, and it's what the sailor used to ship his piece of paper home to his family. And so that's kind of a neat thing. You don't usually see stuff like that. It would have gotten thrown out. And when we get these things, usually they come and they're rolled up still. So I've taken them and put them between 2 sheets of plywood and stick them between the mattress and box spring on my bed for, a year. And then it finally lays out enough that we can work with it to frame it up. So coming along further over to here, in the corner, we actually did a video on this, not a video, but a Facebook post. We actually have the instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry. That was actually a poster that was put up in the LA area when we interned the Japanese during World War II. I think it goes without saying that you understand there was a lot of fear, but I will say this, and it might draw some controversy, but if you read that document and if you were to substitute the language for English for German, and you substitute LA for, let's say, Warsaw, it's not too awful different from what the Germans did. And now, obviously, the outcome turned out the same, but when you read through it, it just says, "We're not going to be responsible for your property. You can put it into our safekeeping, but we can't guarantee you'll get your stuff back. You can't bring any pets. You must show up with everything that you can carry in one box. And it's kind of eerie that something like that happened here not that long ago. So moving along further this way here, we have a couple of war bond posters. Keep them flying. I mean, probably one of the most iconic posters of World War II. We also have the Sullivan brothers. They did their part. The 5 brothers were lost together in 1942 off Savo Island. The Sullivan brothers are always something that's been special to me my whole life. My grandfather lived in Buffalo, New York, and he used to take me to visit a destroyer, the USS The Sullivans, which was at Buffalo Servicemen's Park, along with the Little Rock and I believe the Croaker, which was a submarine. And somewhere there's a picture of a little 7-year-old Tommy sitting on one of the 40 millimeters with his grandfather training the gun out over the side and tracking shipping going up and down the Erie Canal there. So moving along a little bit further, we also have a really cool piece here. We have a Japanese flag, which was signed by a group of guys from the 40th Infantry Division from a signal company. This flag is special. They're all special. Every artifact is special, but this one was actually rescued out of a dumpster in Bullhead City. So thank you to the dumpster diver who found this, saved it, and brought it to us to keep it from being thrown away and lost to the ages. Moving along at the very top, we can see some Kingman Army Airfield stuff. That's one of our very cool pendants that we have that was from the airfield here. Guys would buy those up at the PX and send them home. We also have a copy of the Cactus newsletter in there that was printed here weekly. Most of them were 4 to 8 pages long. There was a whole print shop at Kingman Army Airfield, which was a pretty neat operation. Coming along here, we still have some more different things. We have another war bond poster. We actually have a Japanese award set from 1939 from China. And the most interesting thing about it isn't necessarily the medal. The most interesting thing is the document. And the document, and remember I'm showing this all on the fly, all the specific details are written down, but basically it says for your part in the China incident, you are awarded 70 yen. Now 70 yen to us sounds like that's absolutely nothing. That is almost a year's salary for a Japanese private. So this guy, whatever he did, was given basically an extra year's pay, which is a phenomenal thing back then. So anyways, moving along further here, we have some merchant marine stuff, which is very neat. You don't see a whole lot of that out there. We come across to here. We have an entire grouping from a gentleman who was on the USS Zeus, which was a battle damage repair ship. One day we'll do an entire story just on that piece. He was with that ship the entire war. He was a plank owner. And then we have up on the very top, it's hard to see, that is actually the radio room transcript saying that the war has ended. Below that is a Western Union telegram that says, "Get out my civvy clothes, I'm done with the Navy." So very, very cool piece there. That came to us from his daughter in Washington. We've talked about Francis Green before. He was a sailor who gave his life off of Okinawa when his ship was hit by a kamikaze. And below that, we actually have my 2 favorite clocks that people try to buy all the time because they run. And no, they're not for sale. I don't sell history, but they do keep time quite well, actually. Moving along over here, we have our industrial war map of the Japs want you to quit. We don't. A lot of museums would be skittish about showing something like this. The reality is that was the language of the time. And if you're going to teach history, you have to teach it, and you have to do it without bias or anything else. This is what it was. This is how it is. Most of the industrial war maps were this size, but they don't necessarily have things like that. They actually have a war map on them. And we have a few of those, but I have to build frames for them because I can't afford to pay Hobby Lobby $400 a piece. I built that frame. I'm not a carpenter, but I think I did a pretty swell job on it. Moving over to here, we have yet another dumpster rescue. This actually came out of the transfer point at Bulldog Disposal. The gentleman, a guy works out there, saw the box all shattered, picked up the metals before the bulldozer pushed the rest of it off. That gentleman was actually a B-17 bombardier in England. Again, I'm not sure how stuff like this gets thrown away, but yet it does. Moving along over to here, at the very top, we have the Bikini Atoll bomb atomic test, and that is my grandfather, Leonard Fabing. He enlisted in June of '44 on his 17th birthday. He went to Guam. After the war ended, he didn't have enough points to come home. So he was sent to Bikini in March of 46. He was with the 53rd Mobile Construction Battalion. They did the atomic testing. Came home, was discharged in August of 46, and settled into just outside of Buffalo, New York, a tiny town called Tonawanda, where he spent his life as a union carpenter. I inherited some of his carpentry skills, but not near enough to call myself a carpenter. So moving over to here, we've got a few more things, and we'll wrap this tour up today. This is sort of a neat grouping over here. I'm going to let Jay slide down here so he can get a better angle on it. And these are really cool because this is actually one of our American seaplane bases. This one was actually down in Panama, if I recall correctly. And these guys were doing anti-submarine patrols, mostly in the Atlantic against the German U-boats. Like I say, we got a nice Martin seaplane grouping right there. Up here, we have another grouping that was actually from a gentleman who was on the USS Wasp, as well as several other ships. And at the top, we have his crossing the line, as well as the Golden Domain certificate, which is for crossing the international date line. The Wasp would be lost during World War II, I want to say 1942, early 43. Moving along further to here, a couple of very neat pieces. At the very top, Lieutenant James R. Foth. We will do a whole presentation on him sometime. Jim Foth was actually born in Kingman in 1919. He ended up being a P-38 pilot with the 9th Air Force, flying 56 combat missions. He was shot down on his second to last mission. They were strafing a German airfield. They caught some flak in the number 2 engine, if I recall. Didn't have enough altitude to bail out. Ended up crash landing it, and was picked up by Patton's armored division, one of his armored divisions, and rode with those guys for about 3 days. Helped liberate one of the POW camps, or a concentration camp rather, outside of Buchenwald. And finally, an Army colonel walked up to him and said, "Just exactly what are you doing here? Get in a car, go west, and get out of my area of operation." He did manage to fly one last mission before the war ended. And again, that's just another fine grouping that we have. We've got his dog tag. We've got some other stuff at home. Then we have this really cool piece right here. And during World War II, you could buy, if you were a big organization, you could buy enough war bonds to buy your own bomber. And this was the International, established Brotherhood of Railway and Steamship Clerks. And so they paid for a B-24. The government brought the airplane down from the Willow Run plant at Ford, which is where Ford built most of the B-24s. Brought it down to Lunken Field, just outside of Cincinnati. And this is sort of the event where they got to see the airplane that they paid for before it went to England. Anyhow, like I say, we got a few other small groupings up here on the wall. We finished things out with a really cool lithograph of the USS Eaton. It was actually brought to me by one of our customers. It's always fun. He likes to buy a few ounces of silver every month, and he gets to come in, buy some silver, and look at his dad's ship. So we appreciate it. A lot of what you see on the wall here is stuff that's come through the doors of the pawn shop. And so we buy military history stuff. I buy it specifically for the museum. But other stuff comes in here that, people need to sell, and we do pretty good by folks. I appreciate the fact that the owners, Jerry and Rosalba, have been awesome in letting me use their building. They've been very, very supportive with helping us with the museum project. And we look forward to many years of continuing to work together with them and seeing this whole thing grow. I'd also like to give a huge shout out today to Greg Seitz. And Greg, if you see the buildings all over town that say Pray First International, that's his operation. As well as that, he does a lot of commercial real estate. The building we bought, our school building, we bought from Greg. And he had already blessed us once. He financed that building for no interest. And earlier this week, he came in and informed the Museum of the Great Wars that our building should be considered paid for. He knows what my wife's going through with the cancer. He knows that we've got a lot on our plate. Financially, he also knows that we're doing a pretty good thing here in the community. And I would just like to give him a huge heartfelt thank you. He wrote off a lot of money and donated a building, which is a pretty awesome thing. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in with us here from the Museum of the Great Wars here live at Pawn World today. Tomorrow night, we're going to be in Golden Valley doing the Marine Corps Ball. Next week, we're setting up our display at National Bank of Arizona. So the following week from that, we're going to be bringing you some nice feature-length presentations from some of the stuff there. The Museum of the Great Wars has worked with, well, before it was the Museum of the Great Wars, I've worked with the folks over at National Bank of Arizona, and Shalina and Amanda and all the gals over there are absolutely awesome. And they've let us turn the entire lobby into a museum, and we really appreciate it. So anyways, with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Hope everybody has a fun Friday. Have a safe Halloween tonight. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Take care.